Hello everybody, we are here with Joe in amazing mural Joe in USA. Look
It
what
sounds good. I like it.
Okay.
I like it better than my voice. Hey everybody, Joe here. Thanks for tuning in again. Now here's something that came up in the workshop that we just finished. Man, was that a fun time. The subject of painting rocks came up, and so I let whoever wanted practice painting rocks on my mural using my usual set of primary colors. And so now it's time for me to touch it up after I gave everyone a shot. You know, it wasn't exactly fair. I only gave each person minutes to try to accomplish what I've had years to practice on. But it was fun just to give people an experience with my actual set of tools in my everyday work to see what it's like. And I noticed a few things that I've never really explained on a video, so that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to go through my method. Whenever I really try to teach something to somebody, I notice, you know, it helps me to understand my process better by trying to teach it. So, you know, working hard to teach has that blessing in disguise of actually causing me to understand my work better. So back to the point, this is my method for painting rocks. I start with a midtone, and then I'll add the highlights to it. In this case, if I was way up in the foreground, you can see on different parts of this mural, I have very dark colors on the biggest, closest rocks, like down here in this bottom right corner. You see very dark shadows. But I'm doing distant rocks right now, so I won't go to those blacks on these distant rocks. It's not necessary. So up in here, I'll start by putting my red and yellow, and this is what I had everybody trying to do, and it is hard. I mean, that's just all there is to it. It's hard, but fun to practice, because I think that anybody that really wants to improve their ability to quickly recognize and match colors, this is a fun process to practice that exact thing. So I want to redo this big rocky area. It never did really look that great. This is the ever unfinished mural, so this gives me a good excuse to come back in here and fix it all up, make it a little bit better than it was. So you see me making an orange. I've been working on this mural for you know, the last hour or so. So my brush already has these colors in it, so this isn't a real pure orange, as the black and a little bit of blue is getting into it. And, you know, I seldom wash my brush out when I'm doing this kind of technique, because all the colors are in all the colors. It's just with every brush load of paint, I'm changing the ratio. So I'm going to put a little bit more yellow in that mid-tone. And I'm going to put a little bit of black and white. So my strategy for getting my initial mid-tone mixed up is to first identify where it would be on a rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, where it is on that scale first. That's all I'm worrying about before I worry about lightness or darkness or grayness. So now I'm looking at it thinking it needs to be more gray, so I got to add both black and white. If I only wanted it darker, I'd just add black. Only lighter would be just white. So black and white is going to make a much grayer mid-tone. And I have the feeling that I just now added too much of that black, but we'll see. More white. The goal is to get to a mid-tone that's kind of like this color right here. So I'm going to put more red and yellow in there. Red, yellow. Now you see it kind of looks green. That's because it's heavy on the black and yellow. Black and yellow make a shade of green. Altogether, I need a lot more red and yellow in this than I do that black. I just put a lot on, but it's a good thing for this layer to be on the heavy side. It'll stay wet for longer if I keep it heavy. Notice that as I'm adding more and more paint, I'm not spreading my area out larger and larger. I'm keeping it in this area, so the paint is just getting thicker, and I'm trying to evenly distribute the paint without spreading it thinner and thinner. I'm going to add still yet more of the red and yellow. And, you know, if I have enough paint and I feel like working faster, I will expand this area so that I can get more done fast. Now this is different than other videos I've talked about where I'm doing what I've called a transitionary color. You can watch my How to Paint Clouds videos to see more about that. I'm calling this a midtone because this is just the color that I want to be like a barrier between my black and white. If I add black shadow, I don't want to add black shadow where I've already tried to highlight it with white. So I always start with the midtone and then move either to my highlight or to my shadow, whichever one I'm doing. And in this case, I'm just making this midtone a grayer version, more distant rock, and considering it to be my shadow to keep this picture simple. It's a real big mural. Well, compared to my paintings on canvas, it's a real big mural. So I'm not trying to get real detailed with it. A little more yellow, a little more red. I'm trying to get a little bit brighter orange. I think I'll add a little more white now. Maybe just not quite as dark of a color. I like this color now. And I'll periodically dip my brush in water. You can see it dripping down a little bit there. I don't even dab my brush on the edge of the bucket. I just quickly move from the water to the picture. And if I point my brush down a little bit, then it'll keep that water from dripping down my brush. Just while those few initial strokes of splatting the water on the wall. Now my next step is to try to define some shapes in here. So I have a particular kind of shape I'm trying to achieve with layers in the rock that kind of stair step up to this flatter area. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to get some of this extra paint. My brush is just bulging with that paint that I was mixing. So I usually just use another part of unfinished mural to unload the brush. And I'll put pure white on here and start to just make shapes. The only system I'm trying to stay with on these shapes is that they're moving kind of along these horizontal tracks. And I'm leaving space in between them. So this was something I realized that I never really talked about, was my strategy of working with wet on wet paint and how I like to move it around to get natural shapes. So most of the time I have my brush pointed right at the wall like this, and it's the longest point of my angled brush that makes contact, and I don't push real hard. I just use a large amount of paint, and by doing that I'll take a load of white here, and you can see I've got it on the corner of the brush, and I'll put it up here. I'll kind of use figure 8 patterns or sideways patterns or downward patterns. You can see me just lightly making contact with the wall and not really using the brush traditionally and squishing all the bristles at the same time into it, because it's harder to control what kind of shapes I make. If I do this, I can make a long skinny shape like this with really light contact. I can make a round shape by increasing and then decreasing contact. I can make a square shape by dragging straight down with the corner. I can make a triangle shape by taking the corner and just pushing it and letting go. So you can see these different kinds of shapes. This gives me a lot of diversity to my shapes, and I just use this light touch and make larger shapes out of different combinations of my smaller shapes. So you saw me put smaller shapes of this pure white, and then when I put the pure white on, I mix it in the same place for some time so that it's no longer pure white. So I'll take this, I'll put it on here, I'll start mixing it until I don't see pure white anymore, and then when it becomes a good highlight color, then I'll start moving it around and putting it on places where I want to have the light striking the top sides of rocks. When my brush starts to run out of that white, I move into the shadows and do darker highlights, because I don't have to only do one shade of light on rocks. There's details and shadows too, they're just not as bright. So in the same brush load, I'll wait for my brush to run out of that white and then come across my edges that are between my light and dark paint and just systematically obscure all of those shapes. Now you can see I'm getting kind of a dotty texture and I'm losing definition. That's okay for now. I'm just going to get some colors on there and see if something sparks my imagination after I've had a chance to look at those shapes. But I am achieving some light and shadow and getting some looks of layers in there. So the next thing I'll do is go to already highlighted spots, not my shadow areas. That's not where I want to put the white, or else why did I even put the shadow in there in the first place? I want to highlight where I've already established that there is light. And so sometimes, not always, I'll add more color to my highlight. So I'll try it out here and see what it looks like. A little bit of yellow, a little bit of red, and I'll have a brighter. It depends how complex or maybe what the color of the light is that I'm trying to achieve. But here, I actually added more of the red and yellow to the highlight to get that orangey yellow glow on top of this rock. And I didn't do that everywhere in this mural. You know, that's just places where I, you know, wherever. I don't know. I don't know what my standard is for whether or not I do that. Okay. So now I'm going along and putting, my brush has run out of my brighter color, so now I'm working in the shadows, putting little shapes. And I do lose some shadow, but it's remaining because I'm keeping the space in between. I'm keeping the shadow. I'm putting little tiny light touches of this in the shadow and making sure they stay kind of surrounded by shadow. Then I'm working the edges so that I have some gradients in there that move from the highlight to the shadow. And it'll begin to gradually look more like three-dimensional rocks, just because that's a natural system that occurs with three-dimensional shapes with light and shadow. You know, you end up having just shapes popping out of the shadow, and the further they come out into the light, the brighter they get. So I systematically achieve it rather than trying to think about the exact shapes that I'm making. Once I have enough on there, I will think about the exact shapes I'm making to an extent, because the system has made it happen for me. So you might be surprised at how little I know about the picture that I'm going to paint until I start to see a shape come out of those shadows. And then I'll just run with it once I see something start to happen. So that was the process that I was trying to give people a taste of in this workshop. And you know, I don't think any of them feel like they nailed it, but I was very pleased with the results because I saw the exact same patterns that I was doing when I was first learning this kind of a system. I'm already missing all those workshoppers that came. They just left yesterday, and man, that last day was so fun. So I'll be excited for the next workshop we do, and hope it's as good as that one. Here I'll just really stack those bright colors together, because this is more the top surfaces of the rock. And in this mural I've staged it to have the sun maybe setting so that I've got this real reddish colored light, but still up in the sky. So I want my upper edges to still be nice and bright. And sometimes when your colors are appropriately in balance with each other, you know, when you've got a light and shadow that are real believable, sometimes all it takes is just some horizontal strokes to create all kinds of depth as something is bending back away from your eyes. Just a bunch of horizontal brush strokes, and then it's all these rock shapes in perspective can pop out. Now, that doesn't mean I don't see shapes I don't like. Sometimes, you know, I'll go back and forth and mess with it quite a bit. There we go. I'm going to keep working on this for a little bit, that same method. When I get over in here, you know, same idea, but you can see my shapes are different. So when I came over here and started trying to make the perspective of this moving away, I just added my gray violet color, and I've talked about in other videos that I calculate what does a blue sky do when it mixes with the red rock, orange rock. And so you get a gray violet. And so if I want this to look like it's really at an angle like this, I'll put more representation of it reflecting that blue sky. And it'll make it look like it's going away from me. That in combination with my horizontal shapes. And so I use the same method here. I put my midtone on, I put my rock shapes, but then I'll do a final stage of putting that third light source, or that second light source, additional light source, however many it is, of that gray violet color. You can see I've done that on all these edges all over the place to get these rocks to look more three-dimensional. But if I try to do that right this second, this brush is gonna turn it into some weird brown color because it's got all of that in it. So in here, you know, I can just cut across some of these edges and get intermediate tones all over the place. I just want to be careful that I don't get rid of my shadows in this process. You can very quickly blend all of the colors together, and then you end up with a more flat looking picture. So then you can see how if you wanted to get more detail, just like I did in the foreground, how a darker, blacker brown would look really good. If I just get a tiny bit of black now, you want the shadow to be just like the highlight, where it's only mixing with the mid-tone. This is where it's really going to count, is where I put the black in these. You can see even just dots all by themselves, even though it looks not finished, it immediately looks like a deep spot. But I want to be careful that I don't put that black over my more whitish spots, because it's just not gonna create a believable shadow color. It'll be too gray. So that's where I can really add the details, is where I already have that mid-tone not mixed with the white. All right, I'm going to move on here. Put a little bit more mid-tone. See here I've got edges. That'd be a good place. That kind of looks like an edge now coming this way, so I'll try to get a more gray color. Sometimes I get it with just black and white. Black, red, and white always ends up being kind of a good fallback. Just you can always know that black, red, and white make a grayish violet that makes a real believable shadow or reflection backlight color like this. You know, it's an easy thing to just throw together, black, red, and white. So I'll mix those. I just mix them by lightly touching that same spot on the canvas. And then I can just make these horizontal lines. It needs a little more white. I don't want it to be so dark. Maybe it's just like that, just a little bit, where it looks like it's just really tilting, just really coming right toward me. And I've got to get the right lightness on it, because I'm not really trying to make a dark shadow there. I've got my sun coming from the left side. I'm just trying to make a grayer color that combines the light with the blue light of the sky, where the edge of the rocks are just probably more reflective than the face of the rocks. Just like doing waves on water, same kind of thing. And then if I come in here, try to get rid of my little pure white spots, maybe blend it a little bit, it might look a little more believable if I add a couple more little spots in here. Some of these rocks that are popping out. All right, it's been a while since I've done some Q&A. Okay, so I'm sitting here with Daniel, who's come all the way from Brazil for the workshop that we just finished, and he had some extra time, so he's been helping me actually fill out some areas that I wanted to be a little more fine-tuned with color. So this is fun to have Daniel working with me on this mural right now. And while he's here, I'm going to take advantage of his bilingual skills.
Yeah.
He speaks Portuguese is
Spanish, English.
Okay, yeah. So trilingual. Okay.
Yes.
So is that it?
Yes, yes,
So okay,
yes.
good.
María Chose, gran trabajo, sensación de realidad, admiro tu art, gracias. You made a big work, a great work.
Okay, great work. Thank you,
Sensación de realidad is like
it's real.
real sensation.
Okay. Thank you again. Nice.
And I admire your art. Gracias.
He sounds so much better than I. You used to do radio.
Yes,
in
radio in Brazil.
Yeah. How much more black can it be? Says
God, Deus is God.
Deus volta. Oh, okay.
But I'm not sure God type in there.
Yeah, I don't think it's. The answer is none. None more black.
Miki Ayalita. Este pintor me encanta mucho, me gusta, pero es realmente difícil entender as suas mezclas, ya que las realiza con el lienzo.
Thank you. That's very nice.
Love your style. For she, it's difficult to understand your brushes, your...
Yeah.
Joe espera que este video puede ayudarte a entender mejor cómo faz sus mezclas, and he use a technique wet on wet. Josefa Pires Bispo, maravilha, você é ótimo, suas pinceladas valem ouro, perfeito, parabéns. Wonderful, it's look like a gold, perfect. Congratulations.
All right, thank you.
Good.
Thank you so much. That's so nice of you to say. X-Rand1.
Olá, amigo, por favor, como pintar água de este
How do you paint water?
tutorial que em si existe.
All right.
Say, how can you paint water and...
Like in this video. By the way, the video that these comments are on,
Okay.
these are on how to create 3D illusions. I posted this one a couple weeks ago, and it's of a big mountain stream scene I'm painting over at the local hospital. So that's what this comment is based on. How do you paint water like in this video? So yeah, you know, I have a How to Paint Waves series at learn.muraljoe.com. That's the best I have available that's other than all of the free videos on YouTube. I'm constantly trying to make better content. And so I've tried to explain every single element of that water. It probably just takes more digging than what I hope for it to take in the future. I'm trying to continuously develop more material on that. So thanks for asking. Right now all I have is the How to Paint Waves series. Martin Lenny asking if there is a video like this available translated in French. Man, how much I would love to have all of my videos translated into all languages, but I'm just not able to accomplish that right now. But I have high hopes of doing that with everything, all the videos in the future. If you're ever able to translate a video and repost it somewhere, send me an email, joe@muraljoe.com. Email me and tell me that you want to do that, and I would love to let you translate it for others to
What you
enjoy.
say to Martin Lenny? Merci beaucoup.
What does that mean?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you, Lena Batson, for the nice compliment. The way you mix colors as you go blows my mind. But I think it wouldn't blow your mind if if once you saw, it's like a trick, it's like a magician's trick. Or once you see how it's done, you're like, oh, that's how it is. And when you stand close, it doesn't even look that great. It's just getting the relationships next to each other, the right relationships of color. And so I hope my videos help you to be able to use it in your own work. Stefan Reek?
What? 3D illusion? It is 3D?
It is 3D. Art Taylor says, hey Joe, thanks for sharing. One question. How do you charge for your work? I've been asked to do a bedroom for a young man, teenager, and was stuck on price. Well, I know that I'm reading this comment late. You've probably already got to that. But when I price things, I almost always give one flat price for the whole project. The way I calculate the time that it's going to take me is by thinking about the number of edges. An edge is, the separation between one color and another. So I don't think about size nearly as much as number of edges because I just use a bigger brush for a bigger painting. But the number of edges really eats up the time, the amount of blending or cutting a nice clean edge that I'll have to do. In the end, you just have to put a lot of energy into testing how fast you can go with a certain amount of detail, and then multiply that amount of detail by how much you want to make. And I don't think that there is a price that I can say is the right price to make per hour. Because it's experiment. You experiment. Some people feel a lot more confident hiring somebody that charges a lot and is very pleasant and respectable in their home. And some people are more in the market to take advantage of an up-and-coming artist and say, we'll give you practice if you give us a cheap price. So you pick your battles, identify the direction you're trying to go. For me, I was trying to develop research, and so I took advantage of a lot of really low-paying jobs. But then there were other times that I put the price high, because I knew that I was okay with not getting the prize. Such variety. So I am not the person to say how much you should make, but that's my method, is to identify the complexity rather than just the size. All right, I'm going to stop there on the comments. Well, I've got Daniel on video. You are doing some artwork. I think it's a really cool thing to mention how you did this painting of that shark.
1 year ago, I find Joe on YouTube, and I bought a course, under the water painting.
Yeah, the underwater. So how to paint an underwater scene with the dolphins and the light hitting the sand under the water.
And my painting I started painting this copy to understand your technique and how can I make this in my studio in Brazil. And I made the happy accident.
Happy accident.
Yes.
Bob Ross, like Bob Ross.
Yeah, and I start painting and I made the continuous pattern.
Continuous pattern. They're like a chain link fence. You had made just diamond shapes when you were doing the refracting light on the bottom of the
trying to make this light coming from the sky, the sun pass through the water,
and that gave you an idea for another painting.
And this is start another painting. I start to make a floor under the water, like squares. Okay, let me see what happens if I paint with color like this.
Yeah.
And I show for a friend, and he said, "Oh, I want this canvas." Yes, and I sold, and I made a very big canvas, and I put a shark. In the middle.
Yeah, it's a cool looking painting.
With the shadow, and I use your technique in my studio. I put the lights coming from the sun through the water on the body of this shark, and the result is something amazing, and I think like the pop art style.
It definitely looks, and it's fun, it's bright, it's cool, and then you immediately had someone else say, I want one like this, right? So second customer.
Yes, second customer look, and he said, "Oh, I want to buy this canvas." And I said, "Oh, I can do this for you."
Because you already sold it.
Yes, sold it. And when I come back to Brazil, I have a job.
You've got a job waiting for you when you come.
Yes, but I did another job here in America to do.
Yeah.
In Los Angeles, and it's amazing. This has changed my life. This workshop, it's
I was fishing for that comment.
Yes, it's completely changed because I walk on the street all the time and I look, oh, this is blue, this is yellow, this is green.
Cool. Good. All right,
awesome.
Well, thanks for the good advertising. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll cut it right there, and I'll see you next time.